I left around 9:40 p.m. on a Friday, later than I planned, because I wanted to avoid traffic heading out of the city. The plan was simple: drive straight through the night, reach my cousin's place by late morning, sleep a few hours, then join the rest of the family. I'd done longer drives before, so I wasn't worried. I had snacks in the passenger seat, a full tank of gas, and a playlist downloaded in case I lost signal. The highway was mostly empty once I got past the outskirts, just the occasional truck or car passing every few minutes. Around 11:15, I noticed my phone's signal dropping in and out. It wasn't unusual for that stretch, so I didn't think much of it. I kept driving, eyes fixed on the road, headlights cutting through the dark. About 20 minutes later, I saw a car pulled over on the shoulder ahead, hazard lights blinking. As I got closer, I slowed down a bit out of habit. It was an older sedan, dark color, maybe black or dark blue, hard to tell in that lighting. The driver's door was open, but I didn't see anyone standing outside. For a second, I considered stopping, but something about the way the door was just left open made me hesitate. I passed it, glancing in my rearview mirror as I went by, but all I saw were those blinking lights fading behind me. I tried to shake it off, telling myself the driver probably stepped away for a minute. A few miles later, I checked the time again, 11:42. I realized I hadn't seen another car for a while. The road ahead was completely empty. Then, out of nowhere, headlights appeared in my mirror. At first, they were far back, just two small points of light, but they were gaining on me quickly. Within a minute, the car was right behind me, closer than I was comfortable with. I moved slightly to the right to let them pass, but they didn't. They just stayed there, matching my speed. I slowed down a little, thinking maybe they'd go around me, but they slowed too. That's when I started to feel uneasy. I sped up again, and so did they. It felt deliberate. I checked my mirrors again, trying to get a better look, but the glare from their headlights made it impossible to see the driver. After a minute of this, I decided to just maintain a steady speed and ignore it. Maybe it was just someone distracted or tired. But then, the car suddenly flashed its high beams at me, once, twice, then again, rapidly. I didn't know what to make of it. My first thought was that something might be wrong with my car, like a light out or something dragging underneath. I glanced at my dashboard, but everything looked normal. The road was still empty ahead, no exits for miles. Then the car behind me honked, a long, sharp blast that made me flinch. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I didn't want to stop in the middle of nowhere, especially this late, but the way they were acting made it hard to just keep driving. I eased off the gas again, and this time, instead of slowing with me, the car swerved slightly to the left like it was about to pass, then fell back into place behind me. It felt like they were trying to get my attention without actually overtaking me. That's when I noticed something else. In my rearview mirror, past their headlights, for just a second, I thought I saw another set of lights far behind them, but then it was gone, like it had dipped out of view. I told myself I was just imagining things, that the glare was messing with my eyes. Still, the situation wasn't getting any less strange. The car behind me kept flashing its lights, then honking again, shorter bursts this time. I started scanning the road for any sign of a rest stop or gas station, but there was nothing, just endless dark highway and trees on either side. My phone had no signal now, just a blank icon where the bars should have been. I remember thinking how stupid it would be to pull over here, but also how hard it was to keep driving with someone practically glued to my rear bumper. Then, suddenly, the car behind me veered off to the right, like it was finally going to pass. I felt a bit of relief, expecting it to speed by and disappear ahead. Instead, it pulled up alongside me, matching my speed exactly. I kept my eyes forward at first, not wanting to make eye contact, but curiosity got the better of me. I glanced to my left. The driver was a man, maybe in his 40s or 50s, face partially lit by the dashboard glow. He was looking straight at me, one hand on the wheel, the other waving frantically, pointing ahead, then back at me, then ahead again. His expression wasn't angry, it looked urgent, almost panicked. I hesitated for a second, unsure what he was trying to communicate. Then he mouthed something I couldn't hear through the glass, but I could read his lips clearly enough. "Don't stop." My stomach dropped a little. Before I could react, he slammed on the gas and sped ahead of me, his taillights quickly shrinking into the darkness. I sat there, heart beating faster, replaying that moment in my head. Don't stop? Why would he say that? I gripped the wheel tighter and kept driving, eyes locked on the road. For the next few minutes, everything was quiet again, just the hum of the engine and the faint sound of tires on asphalt. I tried to convince myself that maybe he'd seen something up ahead, like debris or an accident, and was warning me. But the way he said it, it didn't feel like a simple warning. It felt like something else. About 10 minutes later, I saw something in the distance, faint, blinking lights on the side of the road. As I got closer, my chest tightened. It was another car pulled over, hazard lights flashing. And as I approached, I realized it looked exactly like the one I had passed earlier, same model, same dark color, driver's door hanging open. But this time, as my headlights swept across it, I saw a figure standing just beyond the open door, partially hidden in the shadows, facing directly toward the road, completely still, and as I got closer, I realized they weren't alone. I didn't slow down this time, not even a little. The image of that figure standing by the open door stayed burned in my mind as I pressed my foot harder on the gas, my headlights briefly illuminating what looked like at least two more shapes just behind the first one, all of them too still, too quiet for it to feel normal. I kept my eyes forward, but I could feel that instinctive urge to check my mirrors, to make sure nothing was following me again. For a few seconds I resisted it, but eventually I glanced up. The road behind me was empty, no headlights, no sign of the car that had warned me, nothing. That didn't make me feel better. If anything, it made things worse. The silence inside the car felt heavier now, like every sound was amplified. The low hum of the engine, the faint rattle of something in the glove compartment, even my own breathing. I checked the time again. 12:18 a.m. It felt like I'd been driving for hours since I passed that first car, but it had barely been 30 minutes. I kept replaying what the man had mouthed to me. Don't stop. The more I thought about it, the more I realized he hadn't looked confused or annoyed. He had looked genuinely scared. About 5 minutes later, I saw headlights in the distance ahead, coming toward me in the opposite lane. It was the first oncoming car I'd seen in a while. As it got closer, I felt a strange sense of relief, like just having another person on the road made things feel a little more normal. But as the car passed me, I noticed something odd. The driver didn't look at me. Most people at least glance over for a split second when passing another car on an empty road like that. But this driver kept their eyes fixed straight ahead, both hands gripping the wheel tightly. It might not have meant anything, but in that moment, it stood out. A few seconds after it passed, I checked my rearview mirror out of habit. The car's taillights were already distant, fading into the darkness behind me. Then, just for a second, I thought I saw something else in the reflection, something low to the ground, near the center of my back seat. I froze, my eyes snapping back to the road, my grip tightening so hard on the steering wheel that my fingers started to ache. I told myself it was just a shadow, something from the passing car's lights, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't imagined it. I didn't want to look again, but the urge kept building. Finally, after what felt like a full minute, I forced myself to glance up at the rearview mirror one more time. At first, I didn't see anything unusual, just the dark outline of the back seats. But then, as my eyes adjusted, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The rear seat belt on the passenger's side was slightly extended, like someone had pulled it out and let it hang. I was sure it hadn't been like that before. I'd always kept the back seats clear, and I hadn't had anyone in my car for days. My mind started racing, trying to come up with a logical explanation. Maybe it had shifted when I hit a bump, or maybe I just hadn't noticed it earlier. But that didn't explain what I thought I'd seen. My breathing got shallow, and I became hyper-aware of every movement inside the car. I didn't hear anything behind me, no rustling, no shifting, but that almost made it worse. Slowly, without taking my eyes off the road for too long, I reached up and adjusted the rearview mirror slightly, angling it more toward the back seat. For a few seconds, everything looked normal. Then, as my headlights hit a slight curve in the road and the lighting inside the car shifted, I saw it again, just for a split second. A shape, darker than the surrounding shadows, low and hunched, like something crouched behind the front passenger seat. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I snapped my eyes back to the road, my foot pressing down harder on the gas without me even thinking about it. I didn't know what I was seeing, and I didn't want to turn around to confirm it. Every instinct was telling me not to. The road ahead finally showed a sign, an exit coming up in 2 miles. I almost felt a surge of relief, thinking I could get off the highway, find a gas station, somewhere with lights and people. But as I got closer, I noticed something strange about the sign. The reflective surface looked worn, almost faded, like it hadn't been maintained in years. The lettering was still visible, but it didn't look like the standard highway signs I'd been seeing all night. I hesitated for a second. It didn't feel right, but the idea of staying on that empty stretch of road felt worse. As I got closer to the exit, I glanced in my mirror again, unable to help myself. This time, the shape was clearer, not fully visible, but enough to make out a vague outline of a head and shoulders, still low, still unmoving. It wasn't a trick of the light. Something was in the back seat of my car. My chest tightened, and I could feel panic starting to take over. I didn't know how it got there. I didn't know what it wanted. All I knew was that I was alone on a dark highway with something behind me that shouldn't be there. The exit ramp was just ahead now, curving off to the right. I had to make a decision. Stay on the highway and keep driving, or take the exit and hope there was somewhere safe to stop. My hands were shaking slightly as I turned on my signal, the blinking sound loud in the otherwise silent car. As I began to steer toward the exit, I heard it for the first time, a faint sound from the back seat. Not loud, not sudden, just a soft, slow movement, like fabric shifting against the leather, and then, right before my tires crossed onto the exit ramp, a low voice, close enough that I could feel the breath behind my ear, whispered something I couldn't fully understand, except for 2 words that came through clearly. "You stopped." I don't remember making the decision to keep driving, but my hands jerked the wheel back at the last second, the tires briefly screeching as I swerved away from the exit and stayed on the highway. The sound of that whisper was still stuck in my head, too close, too real, like someone had leaned forward from the back seat just enough for their voice to reach my ear. My whole body felt tense, locked in place, my eyes fixed on the road as if looking anywhere else would make whatever was behind me move again. I didn't dare check the mirror this time. I couldn't. My foot pressed harder on the gas until the engine started to strain, the speed climbing higher than I was comfortable with. But I didn't care. I just needed distance. Distance from that exit, from whatever I had almost driven into, from whatever was now sitting behind me. For the next few minutes, I drove like that, barely blinking, barely breathing, waiting for another sound, another whisper, any kind of movement. But there was nothing. Just silence. That almost made it worse. I kept expecting to feel something, a hand on my shoulder, a shift in the seat, but it never came. After what felt like forever, I finally forced myself to glance at the rearview mirror again. At first, I couldn't focus properly, my eyes darting back to the road every second, but eventually I managed to hold my gaze steady. The back seat looked empty. Completely empty. The seatbelt was back in place, retracted like it always was, no sign of anything being disturbed. I blinked a few times, trying to make sense of it. It didn't feel like relief. It felt wrong, like the absence of something that had definitely been there just seconds ago. My breathing was still uneven, my chest tight. I didn't slow down. I couldn't. About 10 minutes later, I saw lights ahead, real lights this time. Bright, steady, unmistakable. A gas station just off the side of the highway, with a couple of cars parked out front. I felt something close to relief for the first time since this started. I took the exit without hesitation, pulling into the station faster than I should have, my tires crunching slightly on the gravel near the pumps. I threw the car into park and just sat there for a second, gripping the wheel, trying to calm down enough to move. The place looked normal, maybe a little rundown, but there were lights, a small convenience store, and at least 2 other cars parked nearby. That was enough. I stepped out of the car quickly, leaving the door open behind me, and walked straight into the store. The bell above the door chimed as I entered, and a man behind the counter looked up at me. He was older, maybe in his 60s, wearing a faded jacket and glasses that sat low on his nose. He didn't say anything at first, just watched me as I walked in, probably noticing how shaken I looked. I tried to act normal, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge and bringing it to the counter. My hands were still slightly shaking as I set it down. He rang it up slowly, then finally spoke. "Long drive?" he asked, his voice calm but observant. I nodded, forcing a small, tight smile. "Yeah. Something like that." He studied my face for a second longer than felt comfortable, then glanced past me, toward the windows that looked out at the parking lot. "You didn't stop back there, did you?" he asked. The question caught me off guard. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Stop where?" I asked, even though I already had a feeling I knew what he meant. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned slightly to the side, looking more directly out the window. I turned my head instinctively to follow his gaze. My car was still there, parked by the pump, exactly where I left it. Everything looked normal. Too normal. "That stretch of road about 10-15 miles back," he said finally, his voice quieter now. "People break down there sometimes. Or at least, it looks like they do." My throat felt dry. "Looks like?" He nodded slowly, still staring out at the lot. "Cars with the doors open, hazard lights on. Someone standing nearby, trying to wave you down." My grip tightened on the edge of the counter. "Yeah. I saw something like that." He let out a small breath, almost like he'd been expecting that answer. "You're not the first." For a moment, neither of us said anything. The silence in the store felt heavy, just like it had in the car. Then he added, "The ones who stop don't always make it back out the same." I felt my stomach drop. "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. He finally looked back at me, his expression serious now. "It means you were lucky you kept driving." Before I could respond, he shifted his gaze again, this time more sharply, his eyes narrowing slightly. I followed his line of sight once more, turning toward the window. At first, I didn't notice anything different. The same 2 cars, the same empty stretch of lot, my car sitting under the light. Then I saw it. The rear passenger door of my car was slightly open. Just a few inches, but enough to notice. I was sure I hadn't left it like that. A cold, sinking feeling settled in my chest as I stared at it, unable to look away. The man behind the counter spoke again, his voice low. "You might want to check that," he said. I didn't move right away. Something about the way that door was open, just slightly, felt wrong. Like an invitation. Or something waiting. After a few seconds, I forced myself to take a step back, then another, turning toward the door of the store. The bell chimed again as I stepped outside, the cool night air hitting my face. My eyes stayed locked on my car as I slowly approached it, each step feeling heavier than the last. The parking lot was quiet, no one else around. When I reached the car, I hesitated, my hand hovering near the rear door handle. For a moment, I thought about just getting back in the driver's seat and leaving, not checking, not confirming anything. But I couldn't ignore it. I had to know. Slowly, I reached out and pulled the rear door open. The interior light flicked on, illuminating the back seat. It was empty. Completely empty. No signs of anyone being there, no movement, nothing out of place. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, a shaky kind of relief starting to settle in. Maybe it really had all been in my head. Maybe the stress, the dark road, everything had just gotten to me. I closed the door quickly and walked around to the driver's side, eager to get back inside and leave. But as I opened the front door and sat down, something caught my eye. On the passenger seat, where there had been nothing before, there was now a small, folded piece of paper. My chest tightened again as I stared at it, my hands slowly reaching over to pick it up. The paper felt slightly damp, like it had been held by someone for a while. I unfolded it carefully, my eyes scanning the short, uneven handwriting inside. It was just one sentence. "You were supposed to stop."